If we were to tell a classroom teacher that they had to be just as impactful for all 30 of their students, but they don't get a classroom anymore, they only have their trunk and maybe to keep a few spare items in one of the schools that they visit. How difficult would that be? And it is kind of difficult, but there are ways to look at this situation to make it so that way we can still be impactful, we can still have all of the things that we need, and we can still meet the needs for all of our students. By the end of this workshop, you are going to have a full shopping list for essential materials for evaluating and teaching students with visual impairments. We are focusing mostly on the evaluation because you can take all of your evaluation materials and then use them for your teaching. We want to do this in a way that provides you not just resources, but also a systematized approach to teaching and gives you ideas and gives you new ways to look at things. We have a lot of people in this room who are already the experts in your field. You've been doing this for a long time. You don't have to sit in this room, but you choose to because you know that having those ideas and a library of resources will give you the ultimate results, just like Cynthia said, because it's given her new ideas to try it with her students. And that's exactly what happens when you take action. I want to introduce you to our presenter, who is Jill Brown. Oh my gosh, she is just one of my favorite people in this field. She has 38 years as a dually certified teacher of students with visual impairments and COMS near Fort Worth, Texas. And she's been working for over 6 years after retirement. I had to take some of her things here and take them off because her CV, you guys, is longer than a CVS receipt for good reason. She constantly gives back to our community. She mentors teachers through the Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired Mentorship Program. She's on AER boards. She's also university supervisor for TVI interns, and she co-authored Texas Two Steps, which was a labor of love in and of itself. If you guys are here for the back to school bash, excuse me, I'm talking really fast because we have a lot to get through. You know that we've had a plethora of presentations, and they're not just haphazardly put on here. Everything that we've done is so that way you can show up to school whenever that is, already having all of your things done so that way you can focus on your students and you can focus on getting them scheduled and the things directly in front of you and not have to stay late at work. We are here to help support you because we know that having a library of resources and a systematized approach to teaching will give you the most efficient way to be impactful on a consistent basis. If you're in the premium pass next Monday, we're also having a CVI best practices meetup in our community app. For communication today, just write all of your questions in the chat. I will collect them. And then when Jill prompts me for questions, I will say the question out loud and then Jill will answer them.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so
So,
let's go ahead.
and I apologize for that. So let's go ahead and skip the objectives. The big thing I need you to know is here is the law. I've given you the code for the definition and the eligibility for IDEA. Just know that every state has taken this general description and further defined it for every state. So every single state in the United States has a different definition of visual impairment and a different eligibility. So know what the law is for the federal code, know what your state's law. By knowing the law, you're going to better advocate for your services and what your students need or don't need. So we'll go on to the next slide. I'm going to give you the who, what, why, when, and where of a functional vision. So who do we identify? Who do we evaluate? Well, our kids who are already identified as having a visual impairment, our kids who have a suspected visual impairment, and any child who is being referred for special ed testing and potential service must be assessed in all areas of suspected disability. I've given you the federal code here. This is one of the reasons why our assessments have increased, because when they're first being referred, if they think there's a visual disability, they're going to bring you in whether they need it or not. To the next slide. So what information do we want from our functional vision. And just think about, why are we doing this? We want data, data, data. We need data to determine visual ability for near, middle, and distance vision in a variety of environments. We want data to determine the best sensory channel for learning and gathering information, again, in a variety of environments, and data to make recommendations regarding specific environmental adaptations. On to the next slide. We're wanting data to determine assistive devices, both high-tech and low-tech, data to determine services to the student and the family, and data to determine your present level of academic achievement, functional performance, and to write goals for the IEP or IFSP. So that is why we do, that is what we are looking for when we're doing a functional vision. So on the next slide, where do we evaluate? Home, school, and community in both familiar and unfamiliar environments. Remember, many of our students do very well visually in familiar or predictable environments. We want to see how well they generalize and process that information in unfamiliar or non-predictable environments. On to the next slide. When do we evaluate? I've given you, again, federal law for initial evaluations for Part B, which is within 60 days of receiving parental consent, or Part C for our infants and toddlers under 3, within 45 days from the lead agency or early intervention service provider when they get that referral. So it's definitely on a shorter scale. And then, of course, when reevaluations are done. Then why do we evaluate? Well, we want to determine eligibility, we know that, but we want to understand how the student uses their functional vision in a variety of environments, and to have a baseline to measure changes in visual ability over time, as several visual conditions do have degenerative factors. On to the next slide. We perform a functional vision to understand what accommodations will best help that student attain vision visually, and then use that information to create a specially designed instruction that's individualized to the student. We do perform a functional to help understand how the student uses all their senses, and to help establish a primary and secondary learning channel, which is going to guide us toward what assessments we're going to need for the learning media assessment. So many of you were given an outline or a shell to follow by your university professor, and I'm sure they're very thorough and they're very good. There's also a couple of commercial protocols for functional visions out there, and I've listed those resources at the end of the presentation. Just know I found this is what I'm going to go through is very detailed. It's taken me several evaluations and years before I can address every single thing. Don't think you have to cover everything, but with that being said, you want to cover as much as you can to write an appropriate IEP, IFSP. And for those districts that are providing asking you to do a one-time assessment or use a checklist or limit your report to only 1 or 2 pages, remind them vision is 80% of what that child uses for gathering information. If your reports are limited, then you're going to leave out some critical information that the child may need to access their educational curriculum. For me, a thorough evaluation was about 4 to 6 hours of testing over 3 to 4 sessions. My reports could be as long as 4 to 6 pages for a functional, 2 to 3 pages for a learning media, and 2 to 4 pages for an ECC. So it could get very weighted. I definitely went over the entire report in detail with the parents before the IEP meeting to make sure they understood everything. Then at the IEP meeting, I would just highlight some parts of the testing, making sure I went over some suggestions or implications to document the accommodations and adaptations that you're going to put into the IEP and why. So some requirements for a functional: it is not a screening, because a screening is not the same as an evaluation. So if they're asking you to do a quick screening, that's not what we do. Federal law is non-specific to any discipline, so it's interpreted differently by every state. And again, here is the code, federal law for assessments. Remember that when you are assessing a student or determining their eligibility, no one single source can make you eligible. It must be through the committee decision from a variety of sources. It's also, you have to have a trained and specialized person. Ideally, it's from the teacher of students with visual impairment and the comms, ideally from both, but it can be done by either or, just to look at both perspectives. The functional is an analysis of how a student uses their vision to perform in real life environments. The evaluation must include performance tasks for both using near and distance vision and the recommendations concerning the need. You're on the right one. For concerning the need for clinical low vision. The essential evaluations that you need, of course, are the eye medical report, the functional vision report, the learning media assessment. Now, in Texas, we are required to do an expanded core evaluation and an orientation mobility evaluation with every initial VI eligibility. With that being said, I know many states do not require those two. However, it would be best practices if you do the expanded core and an O&M at the same time. Okay, next slide. Now your shoulds. Okay, it should be completed prior to other team members and the results reviewed with the diagnostician, your psychologist, whoever is doing the assessments and running the IEP meeting. Because if they're doing their assessments before yours, that child's vision may not be at their best usage, and they may not be able to access the tasks that the person is asking them to, assessing them. So they'll get a different or skewed report. You should have an eye report. In many cases, I know it's very difficult to get a current eye medical report because the parents are unwilling or unable. Federal code states that the district is responsible for paying for that eye report and transportation if you're wanting that. Remember, the eye report's only one evaluation that needs to be included. The IEP team must use information from a variety of sources. No single source determines eligibility. So if you don't have that eye report, you can go forward based on your other reports. It's best practice to have that eye report because we want to know that that eye health is as best as it can be. You should have observations for students in a variety of settings and different times of the day. And then again, address the need for a low vision evaluation. Next slide. You should involve input as appropriate from the student and then from the family and teachers. Include medical information and how it affects visual use. Give educational recommendations and suggestions for adapting instruction. Give recommendations for material adaptations or accommodations that are needed. And you want to include some implications as to why certain accommodations are being suggested. Because their vision is this is what we're going to do. You're to give recommendations for assistive technology and be stated in facts. And your functional has to be readdressed if there are any significant visual changes. Okay, and the next slide. Over the years, I've learned I focus on these 7 areas when I'm doing a functional vision. It's sources of data, medical background, physical optical, which is all the physical attributes of the eyes, perceptual abilities, indoor functioning, outdoor functioning, and suggestions and implications. Next slide. I want to get into a little bit of detail. So sources of data would include any other related evaluations for that student that may help you and the family understand how they're using their vision. Professional observations, you are the professional, so you can write professional observation. Again, in a variety of environments. Should be at least 3 or more. I would say definitely more. The child needs to be observed in the morning, the afternoon, the mid-afternoon, in quiet environments, in busy environments. This, because you're going to get different information at different times of the day about that child's visual use. And it's critical to give you that information about how that child's using their vision, because in the morning they may use their vision, but in the afternoon they may have to use their hearing. So as much observations as you can do will give you a lot of information. Excuse me. Also, observations are going to give you an idea of how that child is currently using their vision and give you ideas. Okay, when I'm assessing the student, this is what I want to look for. You're going to get so much information from observations. So like I said, the more you can do, the more information you're going to get. The next thing is interviews. Back a slide. You want to interview the parent, the child, anybody who's working with the child, teacher, caseworker, nurses, related service. For infants and our students with complex needs, you're going to get a lot of information from your interviews. Between interviews and observations for our infants and our kids with complex needs, you've already got at least 80% of your functional done. For the medical background, again, the I report, you want to include any related surgeries, other medical or physical conditions, and don't forget medications that the child is taking and what are those side effects. I was amazed at how much medical medicine that the child was taking affected their visual use. Okay, next slide. Under physical optical, I looked at how did the eyes look? Were they relatively straight? Was there strabismus, esotropia, exotropia, nystagmus? I looked at the oculomotor functioning. So think about why you're assessing this. How is their visual use affecting their ability to gather information from their environment? Do they use both eyes together? Do they have a steady central fixation? How do they hold material? Is it close up, head down, or is there an eccentric view? Where are those eyes looking? And when I want to look at their tracking ability, so being able to move their eyes, thinking about lighting, contrast, and size as you're observing their eyes moving. So I looked at all the visual planes, which was horizontal, vertical, diagonal, circular. Was there a jerk at midline when they moved from right to left? A lot of times, if there's a jerk at midline, that's telling me they're not using their eyes together. They may have some reading difficulties. I looked at scanning. Is the child able to scan for items within arm's reach, within 3 to 5 feet, within 6 to 10 feet, within 11 to 20 feet, or beyond 20 feet? I looked at shift gaze, horizontal, vertical, from near to middle. Can they look from their book to the paper or to the board? Can they look from middle to distance to find the teacher, from near to distant, and reverse? I looked at their visual reflexes. Do they have a blink reflex? Okay, next slide. For visual acuity, I looked at localization. Can they turn to find an item? Again, thinking about lighting, contrast, and size. For our very involved students, most children, I would do like a target. Can they look at like a pattern target, like with stripes? So if you presented them 2 cards, one that's blank, one with a pattern, typically they're going to look at the pattern. And then you would just note the size of the pattern, whether it's vertical and then the width of the stripes, or circular like a target. And then you want to document color and size of items being presented. What kind of lighting is being presented? Is it just the overhead indoor lighting, or did you have to use spotlighting for them to look at it? How close did the light have to be? Thinking about contrast, and you're going to put all this into your report. Also think about the background when you're having them look at items, especially at a distance. Did it interfere with the child's ability to see when you presented it? And also be careful what you wear, because this of itself can be distracting. So you want to wear a solid colored shirt or apron, or a black apron as needed. Okay, next slide. Oh, I missed a whole lot. Anyway, sorry about that. Some materials that you can get, just very simple, homemade, or from the dollar store. I put a lot of commercial items, materials that you can get at the end of the presentation. So based on your previous professional observations, you should have a great deal, an idea of materials that will fit your individual student. So think about the size of the item and its contrast. This all needs to be reported into your report. And I hate to say you should have a bag or items for your kit, as your functional vision should be individualized to the student's needs and ability level. So as individualized as our students are, that's as individualized as our functional visions are going to be. But some quick ideas for high school students when doing tracking, I just took something that was within the classroom, a pencil, a marker, or their phone, had them quickly do the scanning and the tracking. For young children, I tried to find out what was of interest with them. Like for a young boy, like 6, 8 years old, I glued a little micro car onto a dowel rod, and I drew a line on the board and had them track it going up and down. So I got all the visual planes, I got scanning, I got tracking all in one idea. They had to tell me when the car got off the road, and they enjoyed it. Um, for scanning, you could have the girls find a sticker to match the same sticker. You could make like a little sticker book and then have them scan to locate the same sticker. For shift gaze, again, from looking at your finger or their hand to something 5, 10, 20 feet away. For students with CVI and multiple impairments, I try to use items that were familiar, because right now I just want to see how are they using their vision, and what compensatory skills are they using. So again, on this page, it's only a basic list. I want this to be a springboard for ideas. There's so much more, and I know you have lots of wonderful ideas. Again, I tend to gather items based on what I have observed, based on my interviews, trying to get items with what the child is familiar with, and I know they will respond to, especially our children with multiple challenges. But I also wanted to get items that are unfamiliar, or items that had similar qualities as their favorite toys. I want to see how they're using their vision. So here you can see there's a whole lot of things. And at the end, I have Pinterest. Don't forget, Pinterest has lots of wonderful ideas. Type in visual impairment, visual acuity, and Pinterest will give you pages and pages of ideas. Okay, the next page, I looked at perceptual. So I looked at visual, auditory, and tactual perception for the child. So under visual, I looked at what's the optimal position for viewing. Is the child stable, especially our kids who are in a wheelchair or stander? Are they stable enough? Because if they're loose in their chair, they're not going to be able to use their vision. So that has to be taken into account. What is the child's awareness or attention to the task and people around them? Are they able to reach or grasp or bat at? Is there an eye dominance? For perceptual testing, I looked at discrimination of colors, same and different, unfamiliar and familiar items. Can they recognize, like an infant, can they recognize the spoon or the bottle? Do they recognize familiar people? I looked at form constancy, shape recognition and constancy, letter recognition and constancy, picture identification. Can they match abstract forms? I looked at figure ground, like maps, diagrams, and charts. I thought about contrast sensitivity, so the foreground from the background. I looked at visual memory and visual closure, part to whole relationships, and then spatial relationships of understanding the position of objects in relation to themselves and to others. Then under auditory perception, I looked at localization to sound, near and distance. Could they discriminate and identify sounds? How about familiar voices, animal sounds, environmental sounds? Or were they able to track a sound up and down, behind? Can they reach the sound, move towards sound? Could they follow a directive, like a simple directive, like give me your hands, or multiple directives? And can they do that when there's competing noises? Then under tactual perception, and this is more for the students who are not using their vision as much, I looked at graspability, can they use their hands at midline use? How do they use their hands to tactfully explore? Perceptually, can they discriminate different shapes? Do they have an aversion to textures? Can they scan a page tactily? And then under CVI considerations, you have the 10 CVI characteristics that were created by Dr. Roman. And there's also the CVI protocol from Perkins that has the 16 visual behaviors. And I've giving you resources to those at the end of this presentation. Okay, next slide. So some material suggestions. You can find a lot of materials within the classroom, so you don't have to carry so much from home or with it from your bag in the car. There's also a lot of stuff in the home that you can use too. Again, it's a springboard for ideas. And don't forget, Pinterest has lots of ideas. So like color cards and color sticks, crayon markers, color cards from the paint store like Home Depot or Lowe's. And you can find primary colors, secondary colors, colors that are very close together, and you can kind of get an idea of what they can see and can't see. Of course, same in different worksheets. You can get them from the dollar store or from the classroom. Parquetry blocks, sound tapes, braille worksheets, and then familiar and unfamiliar items. Okay, on the next slide. Then I looked at how did they use their vision indoors. And I took this apart to a cognitive, to an academic environment, excuse me, and a non-academic environment. So under the academic environment, like I want to again look at school, home, and community. So at school, can they make a choice? Can they identify objects? Can they find a dropped object? What happens if that object rolls away? Can they still locate it? Can they put items in and out of like blocks into a can? Or can they put shapes into a shape sorter? Can they hold the item in a correct position? So this is your cognitive part of their vision. Are they interested in books? Can they copy from a board? Can they read items off of a bulletin board? Can they locate the wall clock or an exit sign? How do they view movies and videos? Can they identify the food in a lunch line? Are they able to follow the leader in PE? At home, can they read appliances like a washing machine, a microwave, or an oven? How do they view the TV? How do they view tablets or smartphones? Can they read labels on boxes, cans, or bottles? Can they read clocks? How do they look at books at home? In the community, it's can they read a menu, signage at the grocery store? And you can see a lot of this you can get through interviews. Can they tell the cost of an item, scan shelves to locate a wanted item, make a purchase or locate office addresses? In the non-academic environment, that's like, can they give you eye contact? What's their ability to interact with their peers or play? How do they move to get to a wanted item within 2 feet, within 5 feet, beyond 10 feet? How do they explore familiar or unfamiliar environments? For our children with multiple challenges, what is their participation level within daily routines? Can they detect stationary items and moving items? Can they travel a simple route? At home, I want to look at how do they identify which room is which? Can they move easily from room to room? How do they get a wanted item? How do they negotiate that route? Can they identify various items within their living room or their kitchen? How about lighting changes? Do lighting changes within the home make them hesitate? In the community, again, indoors, can they scan for specific items? Can they read price tags? In the mall, can they use a map? Can they use an elevator, escalator, or stairs? Can they find office numbers or certain stores? Next slide. So very, very quickly, a lot of this you can just find within the home. You don't have to bring in specific materials for the home and the school and the community. Next slide. So outdoors, you want to know your child and their ability level when determining unfamiliar environments, if they're appropriate or not. A lot of school age kids and high school kids, I definitely tried to take at least a lesson off campus, whether it was to a different campus or to a mall that was local, to see how they use their vision. So again, a lot of kids seemingly function very well in familiar environments, but they're not able to generalize that same information in unfamiliar or unpredictable environments. And it's critical that we assess our vision in both areas, keeping in mind how they also use their other senses of hearing and touch. So again, thinking of home, school, and community, going outside, going from indoors to outdoors, is there hesitation? Can they adjust to those lighting changes? Do they play outside in the backyard or front yard? Do they know the difference between the backyard or the front yard? Can they negotiate different surface changes? Can they locate familiar items? I would think familiar items like the mailbox, a garage door, the corner of the house, flower beds. Do they know where the trash goes, maybe at the curb? Can they distinguish the difference between a driveway and a sidewalk? And at school, again, looking at lighting changes going from indoors to outdoors and back indoors. Can they scan items to find items outside? Can they negotiate depth changes, especially on a playground? Again, knowing the difference between grass line and sidewalk. Can they travel a simple route? In the community, for your high school students, can they read a bus schedule? Can they read that sign outside where a bus stop is? Can they locate various addresses on a street, identify street names, or read signage along the street as you're walking? Okay. And then again, stuff that you would find in naturally in the environment, at home, at school, and the community. Okay. And then next slide. Our learning media assessment. So we've got our functional done. We have ideas of what to put for our learning media assessment, which is more of the cognitive part that we're going to use. Okay, next slide. Know that this evaluation tool is to determine current and future literacy needs. It can only be completed by a teacher, whereas the functional can be either or, and it must address primary and secondary sensory learning channels. Okay, some requirements. Next slide. You must address the need for Braille and appropriate reading and writing media, and that's your federal code. So you have to, Braille is the default media unless you can prove otherwise. You should include recommendations concerning specific visual, tactile, and or auditory learning media as appropriate. Okay. And these were the areas that I included in my learning media. Again, sources of data. If I was combining both the functional and the learning media, I only had one source of data, and that was within the functional. I'd list other formal or informal protocols that I could use, get my information from. You also would write down the primary learning sense for the child, and I got that based on the data from the functional vision. And so you could say, based on the data from the functional vision, their primary learning sense is vision. Or you could say, in the morning, they are able to use their vision, but in the afternoon, when there's visual fatigue, they are using their sense of hearing first. I listed also strengths and challenges for each sense, for vision, auditory, and tactile. And it could just be a sentence or two for each. Then I would list what are they currently using for literacy media, for near and for distance. And then I would write what was the general literacy media that was needed for future. Okay, next slide. A lot of this section can be filled out based on your observations. So what can the child do near and distance, visually, auditorily, and then tactily? How are they using their hands? What are some strengths and challenges for each of these senses? And then I would do CVI considerations. How is that child currently using all of their senses, and what compensatory skills are they using to access their learning? Okay, next slide.
Jill, you asked for we've got about 10, maybe 15 at the most minutes left before we do Q&A and wrap up.
Okay, about 10 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, okay. Okay, so the next slide would be your learning media assessment. For our students with additional challenges, I looked at what was their level of awareness. Were they able to participate in routines? Is it different in the morning versus midday versus afternoon? Before medication, after medication? How did they access their daily schedule? Was it through objects, tactile cards, pictures, print, braille, other? Did they have an understanding of beginning, middle, end of a routine? How does the child transition from one task to another? For tactile media, I wanted to know what were they currently using? Do they tolerate touch? Do they have a level of understanding of real objects, like a shoe, a diaper? Do they have a level of understanding of less common objects they would come in contact with, like keys or something else? Auditory literacy, I thought about, do they respond to their name? How do they listen to stories or music? What's their level of understanding of listening to music or stories? Um, what's their level of understanding for directives like give me your hands, look at me? For communication, how do they communicate with their familiar adults or family or unfamiliar adults? Do they use a current AAC or low tech device to express their needs? For reading literacy, do they look at pictures? Do they work tasks in a left to right, top to bottom progression? Are they able to sequence next, or first, next, and last from a story or even within their task? For math literacy, I looked at, can they count? Do they have a concept of beginning and end of a task? Do they have an understanding of time of day, a morning routine versus an afternoon routine, lunchtime versus the end of the day? Do they have an understanding of currency, or what kind of concepts do they understand? Because conceptual understanding falls within math, social studies, and science literacy. For writing literacy, I looked at what does writing look like for them? Can they hold a utensil? Can they scribble? Do they use cards to tell a story or a switch? Then that gets us to technology. Again, are they using a switch? What's their current level of understanding of cause and effect? Do they use eye gaze boards, or can they look at a single item on a black background? How do they access a computer or tablet? What's the visual distance from the screen? Let's go on to the next slide. And I apologize, I'm leaving a lot out, but if you download the handout, I think a lot of this I put into the handout. So for our gen ed kids, again, you want to think about auditory literacy. What's their understanding, their comprehension level when they're reading or when they're listening to a story? Do they have auditory memory? Is it age appropriate? Do they have immediate recall versus delayed recall, like remembering a phone number or address? Do they have auditory sequencing skills? What kind of auditory information do they use? Are they using auditory books, auditory output of digital information? For reading literacy, this is where you would look at what are they currently reading at, and then I would do also a reading inventory, beginning with one or two reading levels below to one or two reading levels above, to see if they're looking, what's their best visual reading ability visually. Is it print alone? Is it print with magnification? Is it large print? And I would record the number of words per minute, their comprehension, the fluidity of reading, their eye shift from right to left. Is that fluid? Can they find that next line? Does lighting make a difference? For math literacy, are they able to look at horizontal, vertical problems, reading charts, maps, graphs? Can they calculate information? Again, what's their level of understanding of currency and concepts? Communication, is their expressive understanding age appropriate? Is their receptive understanding appropriate? For writing, can they copy shapes? Can they stay within boundaries? Is their writing legible? Are they able to shift gaze from their paper to the book to copy? What's their number of words per minute? Are they able to shift gaze from their paper to the board and copy? And again, what's that number of words per minute? That's going to give you information of, are they able to keep up with their peers in copying? It's important. For technology, what's their current accommodations that they use to access information? Pens, bold line paper, overlays, high contrast materials, what magnification, a reading stand, and then what's their current accommodations that they use digitally for technology? The color of the font, the pointer, the cursor, the mouse, the distance from the screen. Are they able to access tablets and smartphones? Okay, next page. Here's a list of different things that, again, you can just find them within the classroom. When I looked at fonts, I tried to use a couple of different fonts like Arial, Times Roman, Verdana, and then the font that the state used on their state testing. I think in Texas at one point it was school book. I'm not too sure if it's the same. And I typically try to do 12 point, 16 point, 18 point, 24 point, but I had an idea of where they were visually, so I maybe would try one point size smaller to a couple of size bigger to see what was best, and then maybe have them do a reading from at least 3 or 4 different sizes of fonts to get an understanding of the fluidity of their reading. I would also ask the student what they felt most comfortable with, because most of them will tell you that they are comfortable with this. Looking at bold line paper, varied colors of pens, grease markers, varied magnifications if I had that, and then lighting. Okay, literacy media. This is now where you're going to write what medium now best suits the child, because you've seen what they've used, you've kind of done a reading inventory. So what's the appropriate learning medium task, visually, auditorily, and tactile for both near and distance? And then looking at reading literacy, what would their literacy program look like? Is it formal? Is it a pre-reader? Is it a functional reader? Is it an other literacy program or a non-reader, like use of switches and calendar systems? Calendar systems can be considered literacy media. So this is also, you would write down the results of your reading inventory to show the best medium for efficient and sustained reading. This again is going to go right over to what accommodations would be needed into the IEP. You want to look at math literacy, visually, auditorily, tactile, writing literacy, communication literacy, and technology. Okay, next page. Expanded core curriculum. I'm just going to kind of fly through this, honestly, Cassie. Just know, if you would just go down to the O&M part of the ECC, keep going. It's all the way at the end. It'll just say orientation and mobility. Just know that the ECC is critical of measuring success and assuring a lifetime of independence. Every district should have a systematic process to ensure that the ECC has been considered. IDEA requires consideration of present levels of performance in academic, developmental, and functional areas. The ECC covers functional areas, so you should be doing this. Everything that we do as a VI teacher and as an O&M falls under the ECC. It's teaching access. So I kind of want to, let me scroll down my notes here. Oops. And again, a lot of this is in your handouts. But as a VI teacher, I know a lot of you do not, you are the gatekeeper, and I hate to use that word, but you make the recommendations whether or not there's an orientation and mobility evaluation to be done. Again, here in Texas, we are required by law that a COMS does the orientation mobility evaluation. But as a TVI, I want you to think about the child's ability. Do they have difficulty with lighting changes, depth changes like curbs or steps, surface changes, understanding the classroom layout, moving from one area or center to another, traveling a simple route? Do they have difficulty like finding the bathroom or the cafeteria, navigating a space, getting in and out of an elevator or a center? I would recommend them for an O&M eval. Mobility, if they have difficulty with balance, lower fields, many of our kids with CVI have lower field deficits, tripping over items, running into people, a poor gait pattern like they're shuffling their feet or hesitating when stepping up and down, minimal head movement or lack of arm swing when walking, difficulty with transitioning movements like from the floor to sitting or floor to standing or sitting to standing. Again, that requires your O&M. So here is a whole list of resources. So here is like the FBE LMA, which is put out by APH, Essential Tools of the Trade, which is put out by Texas School for the Blind. They also have a deaf-blind edition. An O&M edition is currently being developed. CVI, Perkins has the CVI protocol. The Essential Assessments rubric is free, and I think it's out of Iowa. Next slide. Here are more resources for assessment. Don't forget, School for the Blind has their coffee hour, and you can archive assessments and bring that up. Paths to Literacy has stuff. Teaching students with visual impairment is on the internet, and I think she has a subscription service, but there's also free materials related to assessments and other things. Live binders, you can kind of get lost with that, but go to live binder, type in visual impairment, and there's a plethora of ideas. Next slide. Again, Wisconsin has this guide for functional vision that you can download. Texas has students with visual impairment, and it goes through all of the different areas that you can download. APH Hive has all kinds of webinars that you can download and watch. And this one's for determining print size. YouTube has tips for conducting a functional vision. These are all hyperlinks, so if you click on them, it'll take you to where you want to go. Next slide. Okay, the next 3 slides are all APH materials that you can get through federal quota. Next slide. Next slide. I really want to get to next slide. Then these are all kinds of books. The next 2, you can keep going. These are books that you can buy, and these are all resources for perceptual that you can buy. Next slide. Okay, there's resources for eye charts. Next slide. Okay, this one, I highlighted Oakmont Visual Aids. I don't know how many people are familiar with them. It's a senior citizen workshop, and it's all materials are free to anybody who works with visually impaired children. And it's all kinds of concepts, and they're just small, little, simple books. And you can get, they have a whole lot there. One thing I did want to say, I did not say on visual acuity testing, and I skipped over that, and I'm sorry, is you can use eye charts to say they have 2200 vision, but a parent won't understand that, and neither will a teacher. But if you write down what the child sees, like they could see a 2-inch peg at 5 feet on the floor, a teacher can understand that, but they can't see that 2-inch peg at 10 feet. Now they better have a better idea. Or if you can say they can see a 3-inch letter on the board from 10 feet. So a teacher has the idea of how big to write the letters or how close the child has to be to see what's being written on the board. And go ahead, go to the next slide. So resources for CVI. Next slide.
And we have 5 minutes left.
Okay. These are just all kinds of resources. Again, download the handout. And everything is hyperlinked. And I apologize.
I think that this presentation, we should have scheduled an hour and a half.
I'm sorry.
Next time when we have Jill come on and share about this, because it is about what materials you need, but you're not just going to haphazardly put materials together in your trunk, especially when you are only given a certain amount of space in your car and you have to work with a variety of learners. You're going to do it in a systematic manner, and it's going to start at the top. So I love the way that you presented this, Jill. We're gonna do Q&A, and then we've got gifts to give away. We've got CEUs, we've got offers, lots of stuff happening, but I want to make sure that we take care of everybody. Jill, is there any last things that you wanted to say about your presentation before we move to Q&A?
You are the expert. You know the child. Trust your instincts. And if you don't get it this time, you're going to reassess that child in a couple of years anyway.
That's
So,
true. That's true. Okay. Um, I'm gonna stop the share so it's just you and I on the screen, and I'm gonna read the questions that came in. Shannon is asking about medications. Are there any specific medications that you um, know of that make that
mhm.
go
All
ahead?
medications that help children with seizures gives you double vision and blurred vision.
Okay.
So whatever the child's taken, just look it up on the internet. And so what you might want to do is when they're taking that medication, again, find out is it slow release or whatever. They may have blurred vision for the next hour after that they've taken that medication.
And I would talk directly to the nurse on that
Mm-hmm.
campus. And if you have a student, especially if you're an O&M and M and you are taking them off campus and they take any sort of medication that messes with any part of their body, you need to have a good relationship with the nurse. It will come in so handy. Stacy's asking, okay, go ahead.
I was just going to add one more thing. If you know that they've taken medication and their vision may not be as good, let the teacher know because you don't want the teacher to do a visual activity at right then. It may be they have to save that visual activity for later in the day or earlier in the day before they take the medication.
That's true. Stacy's asking, since so many of my students use so much technology, do you have tricks for evaluating writing, literacy, and learning media? They're all convinced that auditory technology is their best bet, but I want and need to confirm.
As far as writing literacy, we do need to write. Um, because we need to be able to sign documents and write notes to ourselves. Technology is great when it's there, but when it's not there, you need a backup.
I agree. We had another question. Christian asks, how do you get creative to find the time needed to conduct these critical assessments?
That's a really good question. Um, Lunchtime. Again, when I'm observing a student, I try to only schedule maybe 30 minutes. So I'm not seeing my other students because you can't skip a session with a student to do that. Or if I did, I had to make that up. Um, Interviews, uh, I got a lot of information from interviews. Just know what you're asking on the interviews. And if you're using any of the protocols, like from ECC or from the FVE LMA, they have some very good questions.
Nice. Okay, we are at time. So I'm going to offer you guys one simple question, and I want to know, how are you going to use this information to help you become a better teacher? How are you going to use this information that Jill just provided? So many resources, so many things to put in your cart with APH and other entities. And how are you going to use it to help you become a better teacher? Because ultimately, that's what we're going for. For those of you guys who need to take off, I'm also going to show the CEU code, but if you have some time, we are about to have a lot of fun in this room going through our gift box giveaway and all of that jazz. So go ahead and write in the chat, and then I will show the screen for your CEU while you guys are doing that. Thank you so much, Jill. This was incredible. Somebody suggested having you on for a part two, and I think I'll reach out to you for that, especially in our clarity group. I think that would be wonderful because I know you had to fly through a lot of your presentation.
I'm sorry.
That,
Also, my email is listed on the handout. Feel free to ask questions.
yeah, I love that about this community. You guys, your ending code is the word school, SCHOOL. Again, your ending code is the word school, SCHOOL. I'm going to keep going with the rest of our party here because we have so much to share. Thank you so much, Jill. This was absolutely incredible. So, you guys, if you have written in the chat how you are going to use this information to help you to become a better teacher, we've got developing a comprehensive kit to evaluate her students. A list of resources has new items that Roxanne hasn't seen and she's excited to check out.
Oh, good.
Use the resources to have more thorough FEE LMAs. And I love, Jill, how you paired it. Like, use these materials to test this part, use these materials to test this part. That way I can look and say, okay, I have these materials, but is it actually being used for a variety of areas of my FEE LMAs? Or is it just things that I think are cool because they were at the spot section at Target, you know? And actually having a why behind everything that I'm keeping with me. I think that's really important as teachers. And we have so many more people chiming in. Keep chiming in, you guys, because what I want to do right now is take a second if you have just like 5, 10 minutes, let's dream. What do you want for yourself in June? Because right now, it's the very beginning of a new chapter in your book, not just in your career, but as a person. You get to reinvent who you are when you step onto campus every single day, but especially every single year. And you get to choose right now. Are you going to be an impactful teacher? Are you going to find yourself in overwhelm because you know that if nothing changes, nothing changes. And if you make different choices, then you get different results. But it's not just about making different choices, it's about having different resources. And that's exactly what we do here at the Society of Exceptional Educators. If you guys are new to us, welcome. We have a plethora of ways that we can support you. The number one way that I love so much is our Clarity membership. We have some Clarity members here in the room. If you're a Clarity member, go ahead and say woohoo or leave an emoji or something. Um, it is so great to have so many people in our Clarity membership that have been with us for so many years. Joan is here and she shares how having accessible lesson plans at her fingertips helps to make her a better teacher. B is saying that she wants to be confident when conducting an FVE LMA and reporting it in the ARD, which is a Texas way of saying an IEP meeting. We want for you to be that person who's consistently impactful, even when life is going on, even when, like, I hurt my shoulder a few weeks ago, I can't walk. I still have to be there for my students, even when life is going on, even when you're in the middle of a move or whatever's happening, or maybe it just rains one day and you were planning on going outside with your lesson for you to have 8 brand new lesson plans completely done step by step and their materials that you can print out. Sometimes they are PowerPoint presentations that you can just have on hand on deck at any moment in time. Also, an expert led workshop every month. We're coming back for part 2 with you, Miss Jill. I'm going to be reaching out. Typically, they're run by Julia Hutchinson, who most of you guys have met at our previous workshop. Ultimately, this gives you everything that you need exactly when you need it, where you need it. We just created a brand new app so that way you have access to everything that you have access to within the Society of Exceptional Educators, especially as a Clarity member, because you have access to our chat. This is where we get to connect and grow together no matter where we are. And we're having a lot of fun in there already. We also developed an AI bot, and I know some of us are scared of AI, but don't worry. This is not giving your information out to the internet. It is a very secure AI bot that we have specifically trained on the best practices for your students with visual impairments. We took what ChatGPT gives us, which is erroneous and wrong and old information, and we said, no, that's not the way that we want our community to experience their lives, right? We want you to always have answers, always have lesson plans, and always know exactly what you're going to teach, even if you only have 5 minutes. or help to answer some of your questions. So we developed Louis, who is literally the coolest. Every time I go in there, I'm more and more impressed, and he's getting better and better. The more we use him and the more that we train him, the better he gets. Right now, if you join our Clarity membership, you get all of that. And we have extra bonuses for you because we want you not to guess anymore. We want you to show up with clarity, confidence, and a sense of calm that comes with knowing that you can be impactful no matter what is going on in your life. Jared said that he was on the fence about joining Clarity, but he saw the inside of the library, and I'll show you that too. And then after that, he was able to use the lesson plans immediately, and that's exactly what I want for you. Somebody had asked if with the premium pass for the back to school bash, if you get extended access, you still get access until the 14th, but you can join Clarity for just $2 for the first 30 days. Check it out, see how you feel. All of the back to school bash workshops and deliverables will be in the Clarity portal as soon as, well, we typically have been uploading them in the Clarity portal if you're in Clarity now. They're also in the back to school bash portal for our premium members, and they're in the directory page. But after the 14th, they will only be in Clarity, and it's only $2 for the first 30 days. After that, it's only $27, and we have a full library of resources. This library in and of itself is worth over $300, and we would not ask $300 for Clarity. If you join the annual membership, then you also get our VI Foundations program as well. If you want to stick around, I can show you the inside of this. This is like a 2-minute video. This is the desktop view, and you can see on the left-hand side how it has a variety of different categories. If we go into the assistive technology category, and they're all separated by ECC area, all the lesson plans have the name of the lesson plan, the age, and any specialization that you might have. And you can literally just, it's right there. Download it. It goes step by step, the lesson plan objectives, how to make it more advanced, how to make it less advanced for your learners, any modifications, any teaching tips. Then you also get your deliverables that come with it. So any materials that you would need to teach, like classroom riddle examples, I literally just download it to my computer here since I'm on my computer, but you can do the same thing on your phone. And so then it just pops right up. If I want my riddle examples, it's literally right there. That I was just clicking into this program here. And then you also get the Google Drive link as well. So you, if you use Google Drive, which hopefully you do either way, it's all right there for you. And so you can see here how it goes through your, you can download the checklist and that pops up right away. It's all in an accessible PDF form for you or your students to fill out. And sometimes there's even a PowerPoint presentation. It's all CVI friendly. We like to make our materials one time. So when you pull this up, you could even get your slides. I just pulled it up from here. And then here are the slides as well. You also have your workshops, and Louis is in there as well. So this is what our whole thing looks like. I'm going to keep skipping through because I know that we are long past time, but I just want you to see if you're curious. It's just $2 for the first 30 days here, and then cancel anytime. And we do take purchase orders. The other thing, and I know I'm skipping ahead, but you'll get all of these different resources so that way you can show up as a different person the moment you step onto campus. And just imagine how much better of a teacher you'll be come August and come June. But not only that, because it's back to school, we want you to also have access to all the other products that we have coming up for this school year, which is our O&M Symposium, which is a 3-day online conference where O&M specialists get together. We're giving you $25 off of the lowest price of that, and the TVI Online Symposium, which will happen in April, which Jill's going to help to put on because she's on our planning committee. These are premier conferences. So if you're not going to AER this summer and you still want to be able to learn and grow and connect with other people, this is the best way to do it. And I would honestly suggest both. If you can, if you aren't going to an in-person conference, this one is the way to go. But honestly, I love being able to do it in my pajamas. I love being able to watch the replays and still connect with other people. So if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out. And then we will do our last thing, which is our gift box giveaway. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and put that in the chat. Diane, will you put the link to the Clarity checkout so they can grab their $2 offer right now? I would do this as soon as possible. You'll get access to everything. You won't skip a beat. Come the middle of August when you're in the midst of like everything going down and everything going wrong and everybody needing you, you won't have one more thing to do. I would just get this done right now. It's $2, you guys, and we're making it that price on purpose because I don't want you to even have to think about it. Lovely. Okay, you guys. So wonderful. Um, Shannon asks if I happen to have a handy dandy form for your students on consult for teachers to track their observations. I would do it on the data collection form, Shannon, and that's in Clarity as well. Roxanne is a member of Clarity and she's saying it's so helpful throughout the year. It really is. You guys are absolutely incredible. Does anybody have any questions before we do our giveaway? I'll probably turn off the recording when we do that.